Hi guys, I'm Shmi, hello and welcome back to the channel where today we are taking a first look at the new BMW M2. The G87 Generation has arrived and I've been lucky to drive a prototype before, but now we can see it in all of its glory and run through all of the details. There's a lot of carryover into this from the M3 and the M4. The S58 engine now produces 460 horsepower, more than the outgoing M2 CS. Now for the new car, it's available with either an automatic or a manual gearbox. It's rear driven in both instances, a small form factor, high powered rear driven manual sports car. That sounds like a bit of a winning combination. It also integrates the M brake assist, you have the M drift analyzer, you've got a whole host of M options, the M track package. We're going to talk through all of this today and have a full look then at the new BMW M2. There is no question that the design of the M2 is quite extrovert, its own completely unique look, but we're going to start with a walk around to go through all of those details. Then we'll check out the interior and lots of the M specific options, plus this car showcases the LCI, the Life Cycle Impulse, which means the new infotainment and larger displays, along with the M exclusive functionality within, but also we're going to have a sound check. We're going to hear the sound of the new M2, so stay tuned for that in a moment. When it comes to the design though, and particularly at the front, we've seen plenty of renders along the way of what this is going to look like based on the prototypes, but it is something very far apart from the design of the M3 and the M4. We've got the distinct kidney grills, but based around this very horizontal theme, a very edgy theme with lots of straight, sharp lines that you can see all the way throughout. It's a car that is significantly longer than its predecessor. It's also wider than its predecessor, but sits lower, which gives it these even sportier proportions, exactly what you want from this kind of thing. As you come around towards the side, those lines continue with this very sharp side blade. We've got these new wheels in the gloss black by default, but also available in the dual tone. The M Performance brakes sit behind a few different tyre options. We've got the M mirrors carried over onto the car now. We've got the optional carbon fibre roof. You can have a full carbon roof as an option should you wish. Of course, it's a coupe, a two-door coupe, but you do have some seats squeezed in just behind. As we make our way towards the back, again, the very bulbous arches as you would expect on the wider model. You've got the lip spoiler by default up on the boot lid. These sharp lines continue all the way throughout, and then down at the base, the M exhaust system with the quad exhaust tailpipes, all of the things that we've come to know from different M models in what is actually the 50th anniversary year of BMW M to launch the new M2. Now you'll note it is just the M2, unlike the previous, let's say, M3 and M4, where they launched with the M3, M4 competition models and the regular models. All M2s are the same 460 horsepower output, but there might be some more coming down the line. I guess we'll have to wait for that. The most impressive thing for me though is that I thought this was going to be a, say, 430, 440 horsepower car, and here we are with something pushing out 460 ponies. Now to have a quick look inside, pop open the doors, because inside here, if you have the full M track package, you get the M carbon fibre bucket seats, which now have these coloured inlays to match with the M colouring theme. Around the centre of the console, you have all of the carbon fibre that you get with those inlays. We've got the new graphics and different things that are showing all around specific elements. So as part of the M track package, you get the carbon bucket seats, you get those carbon inlays, the carbon roof, and then you get the Sport Cup 2 tyres as well, the optional upgrade, more track focused tyre. So let's dive into the design a little bit more closely, then we'll talk engine, and then we'll check out the interior before we hear it. What I was saying with the proportions, the car is 114 millimeters longer, 33 millimeters wider, but it is 10 millimeters lower. So about 11 centimeters longer, of which 5.4 centimeters, 54 millimeters, is actually from the wheelbase. You can see that it's wide though, especially when you're around the front, and these sharp lines that wrap around the outside of the LED headlights. I quite like what they've done here as well to introduce this styling element, which gives it quite a distinct eye to that found on the M240i, just by changing the bodywork design around there. As we're in the center though, it's the kidney grills that with recent BMW models has often encouraged a lot of discussion, polarizing in some cases, obviously giving the M2 its own look, this very menacing front look, it has to be said. Of course, beneath the kidney grills are where you have all of your openings. This car doesn't have the adaptive cruise control and radar sensors. If you did opt for those, they would be positioned right in the very center, but more openings towards the side. Obviously, you've got the parking sensors and things dotted around, but they're very pronounced. These edgy lines, as I mentioned, really do stick out and give it a lot of presence from the front. Now, this car is in Toronto red. There are 5 different color options available for the new M2. Toronto red, you also have Zandvoort blue, you have a gray, a black, and a white. Alpine white, Sapphire Schwarz, and Brooklyn grey also available to complete the lineup for the M2, which is going to be assembled on the 2 Series line out in Mexico. As we come around, as I mentioned, the 19-inch wheel that you have up front, the lightweight wheel with the M-specific brakes behind. The Pilot Sport 4S tyres are fitted to the car by default. There will be that optional Sport Cup 2 if you want to spend even more time out on the racetrack. But as you come around, it's all of these lines like the power dome over the bonnet, those creases that you have running down the length of the carbon fibre roof. As I mentioned, by default, you wouldn't have the carbon roof up top, but obviously being based on the 2 Series means you have the new style door handles, for example, the general shape that we're familiar with, but quite a significant change away from the M2 40i. And it'll be really interesting to see how the M2 and the M2 40i actually stack up, obviously being based on the familiar platform, but quite different setups, with this incorporating so many elements of that M3 and M4 setup that we know recently, although exclusively being rear-wheel drive, no MX drive option. Now, if we come through here, let's just pop open the engine bay for a moment, double pull of the lever down in the driver's footwell to come and open up the bonnet, the hood, to show you what we've got. The 3-litre twin-power turbo inline 6-cylinder engine with a manual gearbox, winning combo again, 460 horsepower with 550 newton meters of torque. That means in this car, with the 8-speed auto, you'll do your 0 to 100 kilometer per hour sprint, 62 miles per hour sprint in 4.1 seconds. With the manual gearbox, you'll be doing it in 4.3. Obviously, plenty of performance for the kind of level you want out on the road for sure. Additional strengthening also beneath, obviously, to secure the engine in place, the S58 that we've seen through the M3, M4. Obviously a few changes needed due to the shorter length of the car, sitting about 22 centimeters shorter than the M4, for example, but looking good up front here within the engine bay. Let me just close this back down, drop it into place, come and show you a better look inside. In a moment we shall hear this, but beforehand let's check out the interior. We've got the key right here, the familiar BMW key with the M stripes for the M specific models, keyless, so I'm going to pop that away in my pocket. To unlock it, you just touch on the back of the door handle, pull that open, and inside we will then be greeted by the M welcome animation with the welcome sound as well, some specific graphics for this particular car. The dashboard is this 12.3-inch digital display. The central screen is the 14.9-inch display with this curved feel wrapping around you, but this is all part of the LCI, and the first time for me actually really exploring and going through this. I want to show you some of the different screens, displays, the settings, the things you can control with the setup and the M modes, and of course we'll hear it in a moment as well, but obviously all themed around the M colours, the blue, red, well the 2 blues and the red. The steering wheel has the M1 and the M2 toggles, as we know, the red start button down here as well, and of course we have the 6-speed manual shifter with a short throw, a great feel to it, and I got to experience a lot of that on the pre-drive. Looking forward now to driving the fully completed car. Interestingly, by the way, the manual gearbox is 25 kilos lighter than the automatic gearbox option. We have the carbon fibre trim, both around the steering wheel, but also for the fascia of the dashboard and the central tunnel surround, even over there on that cup holder cover as well. I've got a few controls for your cruise control and some of your infotainment right up there on the steering wheel, and then when you press on M1, for example, it will change the driving modes and settings depending on how you've got that pre-configured. Now, to wake up the ignition very briefly, we'll save it just a second before we start the car, but in here there's a lot to see, because within these tiles and within each display you can then go into sub screens and systems. It is touchscreen, obviously. You've got the setup here, and this is where you can choose your engine gear shift assistant, so whether it automatically rev matches, your chassis settings, the steering settings, the brake, which is the M integrated brake assist, where it changes the feel of the brake pedal, though you still get full brake usability, and then you've got the M traction control. Now the interesting thing with the M traction control is that if we actually press this, we can either go into MDM, which is M dynamic mode, or we can turn DSC fully off. With DSC fully off, you then have the M drift analyzer. As we saw on the M3 and M4, if we activate this, the car will record and give you a rating of your performance when you're drifting out of 5 stars. How long you drifted, how far you went, the angle you had the car, all stored within the system. Combine that with this, with being rear driven and having a lot of power, and that sounds like a whole load of fun to me. I love that we've got that ability, of course, to use in the right environments, not out on the public highway. Now, what I would like to do to show you the M modes, we will need to start it. So firstly, foot on the clutch pedal, press the red button. A familiar S58 sound. At the moment, we've got everything in the base settings, but if we go into M2, for example, and confirm that, put it up into sport, we go to Sport Plus for the engine, a few more burbles and sounds out of it. Now the M mode is interesting. Within the M mode, you have your road display, which is basically as we currently have it, with not too much information on the driver's part of the dashboard. But if you go up into Sport, it then focuses this a little bit more for the track. We've got tyre pressures, temperatures, and effectively the rev counter a little bit more prominently with your gear selector in the center. Or if you go all the way in the M mode to track, and we activate track, what it does is disable the central screen, give you everything on the dashboard in front of you, turn off the music, turn off any distractions, because at that point it's all about driving fast on the racetrack. You'll notice obviously DSC is fully off as well. Sounds good, doesn't it? Anyway, let's liven all of this back up for the moment, just so we can get back home. I'm going to shut it off because we are here in the studio. We don't want to keep it running for too long. At that point, you've got pre-cooling and all sorts of other settings and things. But in here, we've got the main tiles, music, whatever it might be. There are so many things and elements to this. And obviously, as I said, you can go into each of these screens and panels and bring up other bits of data and information. And yes, we're just outside of Munich at the moment. Telephone connection, Bluetooth. There's a lot to it. Like I said, ignore graphics because it's not the final version yet for this exact model of car. But great to see all of this system and the improvement, really, the integration of it all, making it all work very smoothly and easily. Now we have 2 cup holders, USB port, a little bit of a storage panel just inside there. If we come back through in the armrest, we've got a USB-C port, a bit more storage space in there as well. The seats just have these really nice details like the horizontal stitching across the illuminated M2 badge at the back when you just switch the car on, those inserts within the doors, and even this style of texture that you have on the door panel as well. We've seen that on some of the other models. Looking into the back of the car, you know, there's a bit of space back there. It's 2 seats in the back as opposed to a third. You've got a little storage tray in the center. You're not going to fit somebody large for a long journey in great comfort, but I tell you what, they will be looking at the back of these gloss carbon fiber seats, which absolutely do look the part as well. So super nice on that front. I've always found this thing in the middle a little bit odd, not the most comfortable if you want to move your position around at all. But the idea behind having all of these cutouts, and there are 3 different seat options, by the way, the standard seat, the M Sport seats, and then these M Performance seats, is that these cutouts actually take away so much weight, and obviously the use of carbon fiber from the sports seat, that the performance seat is actually 5.4 kilos lighter for the car than the sports seats, and that's a huge weight saving if you think about it. The car being 1,700 kilos or 1,725 kilos with the auto gearbox, so obviously stepped up a little bit, but the power is up 50 horsepower from before as well, which is a pretty huge step, and even 10 horsepower more than the lightweight M2 CS that came as the last hurrah, really, of the previous generation. So it feels like a nice place to be. Obviously the Toronto red of this car standing out bright and bold. Just a quick look around at what else we have. View mirror, obviously all of the creature comforts and things you'd expect from a BMW model, with the lighting in the front and also in the rear, and you can fold down just the center, the sides, or whatever it might be that you need to ensure obviously that you are able to use the car in a practical way as well. So yeah, Feels good in here. These systems are great. The amount you can configure is wonderful. Set up your M1 and M2 and you are good to go. We've got the heated steering wheel button just down at the bottom as well. Light controls over here. The seats are actually automatic. So we've got the controls for those just down here. All works as you would expect it, to be honest. Let me step out, climb over the buckets. It's always a little bit more awkward to step out over big side bolsters like this, but then again, the advantages come on the racetrack, and they look really cool, don't they? That full carbon fiber back looks lovely. Looks really very, very nice on those seats. So as part of the M track package, to reverse the process when you've stepped out, press of the button just here, car is locked. Done. There is no denying that at the moment BMW do rather love a controversial design, and the new M2 is exactly that. You will either love it or you will hate it, but either way, it's a talking point. And what this car represents is that emotive connection that BMW have often had with drivers, with petrol heads. You know, manual gearbox, rear driven, lots of power, enthusiast option. And in markets like the United States, Germany, the UK, it'll be very interesting to see what the distribution is between the autos and the manual, especially in a world where having a manual equipped straight six engined car isn't really something that there's a whole lot of out there on the market anymore. Yes, against that, the weight is significantly up. It's over 100 kilos heavier than before, obviously with regulations in terms of the emissions and all of the different systems that have to be on it, plus the safety side of things, plus all of the technology that we quite enjoy as well. You can see how that's happened, but the step up in power is even more significant. The power to weight has improved as well. What remains to be seen is what it's like to drive out on the road, and I can't wait to get an opportunity to experience that myself. When you stand next to the car, you do actually notice quite how long the bonnet is also to house that power plant in what's otherwise quite a small car, to be honest. So yes, we now see it in its full glory, the brand new BMW M2, and I'd love to hear your feedback, what you think about the car. But I hope you've enjoyed today's first look, to run through it, to see the interior, to hear it, and to check out some of the different options and spec as well. But that's it for now. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, guys, I appreciate your support an awful lot, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.